there is good question about payment terms. How is COVID impacting the payment terms in general, and if there are any statistics provided showing changes in current average level of DSO per particular business type? Well, I try to answer myself, then Vladimir, if you wish to add something, I would say that credit terms will depend on every specific country. On my view, every pair, like supplier and buyer, is actually unique, because one supplier takes a decision to maintain this supply chain, which generates cash for everybody, and will having an ability to provide, maybe from suppliers, maybe from own capital capacities. One supplier will extend credit terms to his customer in order to maintain supply chain. Another one will cut credit terms in order to to control their expenses and so on. So the general comment on what's going on now in the economy is that the range of possible credit terms and DSOs become much more wider as it used to be. And since it became much more wider, the specific situation on a specific market becomes much more unpredictable. I mean, my general advice to my colleagues, just let's say, put more variables into the equation. It's not like normal DSO or whatever credit term supposed to be 60 days. It's supposed to be variable. There are many factors which are affecting credit term or payment term, and since the credit term is actually the main component in DSO, the main impacting component, the range of possible values of DSO is becoming bigger. Sorry for that wide answer. Maybe Vladimir will add something to that.
Absolutely, Andriy. I would just add to what you have said. And again, a recurrent crisis. And again, the textbook theory says that recessions happen in economies on average every 7 to 8 years. By stroke of luck, the past two crises have taught us that it would be prescient to basically within a decade have a plan for at least one recession or one crisis within a decade. If one does that, I dare to say he very likely can't do much wrong. But then what this crisis has taught us is, and especially when it comes to the question about the payment terms, in a good times, we are all used to the best practice. We are all used to the IFRS treatment of the accounting aspect of the payment terms. But in the crisis times, it comes to the point of what is possible, what is legally and regulatory possible. And at that point, this underplayed and sometimes overlooked aspect of the government effectiveness risk and the legal and regulatory risk comes in play, which means, just to add to what Andriy said, yes, in the crisis, from one common set of the best practices in payment terms, you end up with having really different pairs of risk variables. And you can even have countries which are on the same, let's say 2 countries within the European Union, right? Where the acquis community, the common framework should be very close, but then you have a different scope of the government effectiveness. How long does for example, the court proceedings take? Sure. At which point your counterparty doesn't take into account only the difference in the regulatory and legal terms, but also they simply will play very differently, because they know from the moment that you sue them until you get the result, it can be rather variable between even 2 countries within the common block. Yeah. So that's why, and to put on that, because of that significantly higher transaction cost, assessing all these risks is associated with inevitably with higher cost. Because of that, that forces us all to go back to the drawing board and to reassess the trading terms and conditions after the post-COVID crisis. Apart from this risks of the higher inflation, risk of higher interest rate, risk of the different behavior on the side of the corporates. Very little is being spoken about, and that's again little dirty secret of this COVID crisis is we have this unprecedented fiscal stimulus being thrown at the economy, and in many cases saving also the corporate sector, right?
Sure.
Well, guess what? Guess who's gonna pay for all that stimulus? As there is no free lunch